They said I would quit before midterms, and I smiled so no one had to watch me bleed. My name is Rowan Delaney. I grew up at the end of Maple Street, where the lawns were cropped short and the gossip kept longer. In our house, my mother believed in practical work, my stepfather believed in bills paid on time, and I believed in finishing what I started. 2 out of 3 was never enough. It began at a backyard cookout in early May, when spring gnats floated above paper plates and the grill hissed like it was tired of us. My cousin bragged about her new job at the bank, wearing a dress that matched the color of the lemonade. I said I had re-enrolled for the fall to finish the last 30 credits of my degree. I had taken a year off to care for Mom after her surgery, then stayed off to stack a little money. The plan to return had lived in me like a pilot light. My mother wiped her hands on a dish towel and tried to keep her voice soft. College is fine for some, she said, eyes fixed on me, but not everyone is a college person. My stepfather added, work is honest, school is expensive, and we can't float you. An aunt laughed lightly, as if I'd told a joke. Sweetheart, you're good with people, you don't need a diploma for that. I didn't argue. I took the empty lemonade pitcher inside and stood by the sink, listening to the creak of the kitchen window and the faint roar of someone's lawnmower 2 houses over. I thought about my first semester, the long nights at the library, the 1B that had felt like a bruise on my ribs, the quiet chorus of my own belief. I thought about how people say, be realistic, when they already decided what you are. When I came back outside, my cousin was passing around a carrot cake and telling everyone how she would be a homeowner by 27. The frosting smudged on her thumb looked like paint. Not everyone finishes, she said, smiling at me in a way that wasn't mean, just certain. It's okay to be different. I took a small square of cake and a larger breath. I'm going back, I said. I've already registered. The table went still, the way a pond stiffens at the first cold night. Rowan, my mother said, we can't help. Don't make a mess you can't clean up. I won't, I said, and tasted the sugar on my tongue, and felt the small flame in my chest lean into the air it was given. That night I sat at my own kitchen table, a second-hand thing with a wobble in one leg, and opened my laptop. The registration portal glowed like a window I could climb through. I rechecked my courses, reached out to an advisor, mapped the credits like tiles on a floor. Somewhere in the house, the refrigerator hummed. I pressed submit, and the first spark shot through me, quick and clean. I told no one else. The hurt from the backyard sank down and settled, heavy but not permanent. I wrapped it in work. I let the small flame keep me warm. There is a version of loneliness you carry to work, one shift at a time. Mine began at 4 in the morning at the bakery, where the air smelled like cinnamon and wet flour. I twisted dough into ropes and stacked croissants on silver trays while the radio murmured half-slept songs. By 8, I rolled home to shower, then caught the 9:10 bus to campus with damp hair under a wool cap. I wore the same gray coat until the lining gave up. Classes asked for the best of me, and work asked for the rest. I learned to study in small rooms, in an empty stairwell, in the library cafe that sounded like rain. I turned my phone face down, because the family group chat ran hot with jokes that had sharp edges. How's real world you? My cousin wrote once, a string of smiley faces trailing like confetti. My mother texted reminders about the electric bill, the price of gas, the way a good daughter should not drown. On Sundays I ate dinner at home, because my mother liked me at the table, and because I could not bear the argument that would come if I did not. We talked about the weather and the grocery specials. If my classes came up, silence followed like a shadow. You know, my stepfather said once, people with degrees still end up stocking shelves. People without them do too, I said quietly. He cut his meat into small squares. So why pay for the paper? I carried plates to the sink and counted to 10. I watched the water steam, watched the grease break and float away. The first summer session ended. I earned 2 As and a thin line of pride down my spine. No one asked. I kept going. I worked evenings at the laundry in the hospital basement, where sheets rolled on a conveyor like clouds falling apart. I wrote a paper about a poet who wrote about work. I read on the bus, the pages fluttering in the breeze from a cracked window. When people said, "It's okay to step back," I said, "I'm fine," and I meant it, even when my feet hurt and my eyes burned. Money made each choice heavy. The bursar's office had a voice like a calculator. "We can set up a plan," they said, "but you must be steady." I was steady. I stopped buying coffee. I cut my hair at home, badly, and wore it tight to my head until the mistakes grew out. I sold the camera I loved. I said no to friends twice, then they stopped asking. The world divided itself into those who believed I could finish and those who did not. The ones who did lived mostly in my head. A professor wrote, "Clear, disciplined, bright," at the end of my essay, and I took a picture of the margin and saved it under a password. The bus driver started to nod at me in the mornings, as if he admired anyone who kept catching the 9:10. Near the end of fall semester, after a week of early shifts and late study, I stood in my tiny kitchen and stared at the calendar. Boxes filled with due dates and work hours blurred into a gray quilt. I pressed my palm flat against the paper and made a vow as plain as the tile under my feet. Finish, and say nothing. Finish, and let the proof speak. Winter sharpened the edges of the city, making every breath feel earned. I wrapped a scarf around my mouth and let the wind charge at me on my walk to the bus stop. I learned to tuck warmth into small places, like the inside pocket of my coat where I kept a folded index card. On it I had listed the classes left, the credit hours stacked like bricks, 13 in spring, 6 in summer, 11 in fall. 30 credits to cross. In February, the bursar's email came like a cold splash. A tuition adjustment, a fee that had been buried, a missing grant I had counted on. The bottom line tilted. I ran the numbers twice. I could keep my promise only if nothing else went wrong, and things were already wobbling. I opened the shoebox that held my important papers, the modest archive of my life. Birth certificate, social security card, an old bank statement, the medical bill from my mother's surgery, a high school diploma with a crease in the corner. At the bottom, tucked under a stack of envelopes, sat a yellowed card with a lion printed on it, the logo of a credit union my grandmother had loved. She had died the winter I graduated high school, leaving behind a wicker chair and a tin of recipes and a laugh that still lived in the corners of certain rooms. The envelope had my name in her hand, a careful slanted script that made my heart stamp once in my chest. I slid out a note and a cashier's check dated the spring before she passed. For Rowan's schooling only, she had written, looping the Y in only like a ribbon. Not for rent, not for clothes, not for anyone else's comfort. I believe in your mind. I believe in your finish. The check had never been deposited. I sat on the floor, the shoebox at my knees, and tried to steady the world. The check could not be cashed as it was, but the note carried weight, and the credit union still stood 3 blocks from the bus line. I packed the envelope into my coat and walked. Inside, heat lifted from the floor vents and made the glass doors fog. A woman at a desk with a plant shaped like a star smiled. Her nameplate said Anna Ortiz. I explained what I had found, and showed her the card and the old check, and placed my grandmother's belief between us like a fragile plate. "We can't honor a check this old," she said, "but sometimes people set up something else." She tapped my name into the system. Her brows lifted. "There is a small certificate of deposit, maturing this month. Your grandmother named you beneficiary, with a note attached." She turned the screen a little, not enough to break rules, just enough to let me know I was seen. "It's not large, but it's something. You'll need identification and probably a letter from your registrar to confirm it's for school." My lungs shook as if I had been running. "I can get that," I said. Do, she said. And bring the note. Your grandmother did this with care. I went to campus with the envelope pressed warm against my ribs. The registrar's office smelled like toner and rain boots drying under chairs. A clerk named Ms. Patel looked at my credit plan, at the note, at the calculator line that said tuition would eat me whole without help. I can write a letter confirming you are within a year of completion, she said. And I can lay out the courses and the costs. Keep your attendance clean. Don't take on any more than you must. I won't, I said. She printed a letter on thick paper, signed it with a pen heavy enough to anchor a ship, and slid it across the counter. The edges were crisp. The ink was dark. Standing there, I felt recognition pull a straight line through me. I had been walking down the middle of it the whole time. I returned to the credit union with Ms. Patel's letter and my grandmother's note. Anna gathered the papers, photocopied the pieces, and came back with a calm I could lean against. We'll release the funds according to your tuition dates, she said. It will go to the school. That way you cannot be tugged. I nodded and tucked my scarf tighter, like I could hold this moment to my throat. Outside, the wind played with the flags. Inside my chest, resolve shifted from a vow to a plan, clean and specific. I messaged my professor, asking for one day on a deadline, not saying why. I took the day, and I breathed, and I began to feel something like gratitude sit down next to my determination and stay. The day the diploma arrived, the mail carrier knocked softly, as if the envelope could bruise. The cardboard sleeve had the university crest stamped in bright ink, a small gold seal pressed like a coin. I slid a butter knife under the flap and eased the paper out, and there it was, my name raised and shining, Rowan Delaney, Bachelor of Arts, magna cum laude. I ran a fingertip over the letters, not to be dramatic, but to be sure. The room felt quiet in a new way, like that moment in a song when the melody climbs and then stands still. I leaned the diploma against the fruit bowl on my table, next to an apple and a lemon like small suns. I breathed. Then I put it back in the sleeve, put on my coat, and walked 2 blocks to the framer I had saved for these months. He fitted it behind glass with a mat the color of cream. Congratulations, he said, almost in a whisper. Feels good, doesn't it? It feels done, I said. And also beginning. On Sunday I went to my mother's house for dinner. I brought a casserole and a dish with faded blue flowers and a paper bag with the frame inside. My stepfather watched a game with the sound low. My mother stood at the sink, scrubbing a pan like it had insulted her. The kitchen window showed the maple tree, leafing out again, committed to its own cycle. We ate. The talk was small and safe. The casserole was fine. When the plates were cleared, I set the framed diploma on the table and peeled the paper bag away like a bandage from something healed. No one spoke. The gold letters caught the light. My mother's breath shifted, a tiny catch. My stepfather swallowed. It arrived this week, I said. I wanted you to see it here. My mother stared at my name as if it had walked in without me. Rowan, she said, not an argument, not an apology, just the shape of me. I reached into the bag again and took out a folder. Inside was Anna's letter, the credit union disbursement details, my grandmother's note photocopied and placed at the top. I set them next to the glass, a quiet arrangement of truths. She left this for me, I said. Years ago. There was a certificate in my name. The credit union released it when I brought a letter from campus. It covered the last stretch. I worked for the rest. I wanted you to know I didn't ask you for anything you couldn't give. My stepfather rubbed the back of his neck. We didn't know, he said, voice flat. I didn't either, not at first, I said. I found it when I needed it. I finished. That's all. My mother sat down. She pressed her fingertips against the glass and then pulled them back, like she had touched a cool stream. Your grandmother, she said softly, as if speaking to the chair across from her, always said you had a fire that didn't burn anyone. Across the room, the television played a beer commercial on mute. The maple moved outside, green and certain. I poured 3 glasses of water. We drank, as if to mark something in us cleared and filled again. My cousin had texted earlier, a short message about a baby shower next month, a picture of pastel balloons. I did not bring it up. This wasn't about her, or even about the backyard words that had lodged in me like splinters. This was about the glass on the table, the note in the folder, the simple weight of what had been done. Congratulations, my stepfather said finally. The word looked strange in his mouth, as if it required different muscles than the ones he usually used. He tried again. You did it. I did, I said, and felt the stillness settle. Justice had entered the room and taken a seat, not dramatic, not vengeful, only present. We let it sit with us. No one reached to move it away. I hung the diploma above my desk, where the morning light reached first. At 6 each day, the room glowed for a few minutes, and the gold letters lifted like they were remembering the moment they came to me. I kept working at the bakery, then moved to a clerical job at the library downtown, where the days smelled like paper and the hush of people making quiet plans. I learned to breathe in longer lengths. In June, I planted tomatoes in a narrow strip of soil behind my building. The seedlings looked fragile, a green that seemed almost apologetic. I staked them with bamboo rods and checked them every morning with my coffee. When the first flowers opened, small and yellow, I felt something inside me unknot. My mother called once a week. The first calls were brief, packed with weather and recipes and remarks about the price of eggs. I listened, and I asked about her knee, and I told her where I had walked that day. When she paused, the space did not feel heavy. It felt like a room we were learning to share. One Sunday, I drove over with a photo of my grandmother's note tucked into a frame. I set it on my mother's bookshelf next to a porcelain bird. We talked about her laugh, about the wicker chair, about the winter the pipes froze, and we stayed up all night with hair dryers and pots of boiling water. My mother touched the frame and said she would be proud. I did not say, me too. I let the truth do its work without my mouth managing it. At the library, I started a resume workshop on Thursdays. 5 people came the first week, then 8, then 12. I printed worksheets and brewed a pot of coffee that tasted like kindness even when it didn't taste good. I watched a teenager in a denim jacket write his name at the top of a page like it was an act of faith. I watched a woman my mother's age list the jobs she had held and the skills she had built in a life no one had congratulated yet. Keep a record, I said, passing out a simple template. No one can argue with the list of what you've done. At home, I kept my own record. Not a boast, not for anyone else's eyes, just a ledger where each line was a day I showed up. The tomatoes climbed the stakes and held their fruit like quiet lanterns. I learned all the names of the bus drivers on the 910 and brought muffins on Fridays. The world eased. Sometimes, the backyard returns to me, the laughter and the certainty and the way a soft comment can cut. I remember my mother's towel, my aunt's smile, my cousin's lemonade dress, the chorus of "Not everyone." I think about how a sentence can become a cage if you feed it. I think about the keys we are given and the ones we make. I do not frame the hurt. I don't give it wall space. The diploma is there, the note is there, the light finds them both. In the quiet hours before work, I sit at the desk and write in a notebook, not goals, not big maps, just what today will ask of me, and what I will bring. After all the noise, the quiet carries the farthest. The paper speaks without needing my throat. My grandmother's loops and lines reach across time and touch my fingers. My mother sets 3 plates and a glass of water and says my name as if it means finish and beginning in the same breath. If this story touched you, share your thoughts below. And subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge.